going to show you how to make this coastal relief carving. It's quite deep, uses full depth, and it's got some interesting challenges in the way of perspective, and also how we do rocks and landscapes in the distance. One of the things with relief carving, of course, is that all we're playing with is the depth, the light and shadow, and this is a dark wood. And in hindsight, I think it might have been better to use a lighter wood, and certainly one with less grain. So if you're starting off, if you want to have a go at this project, then do find a lighter wood, not necessarily with so much grain, and then the actual shadows will show up more. Here's a picture of the dory that I go boating in. There's a closer up view of it. Very long, very elegant. But I thought, although I wanted to carve this, I couldn't really get the sort of image in the wood that I really wanted. So I swapped the type of dory into this type of dory, which is a rather broader, shorter dory, more curved, called a Grand Banks dory. And that was a sort of preliminary sketch that I made. And what I did is I made various photocopies of my drawing, so you can see what happened. Now, if we put this dory here, and it's a little one, we have a lot of space over here. So here's an emphasis on space, loneliness, or whatever, emptiness. If we have a much bigger dory, like this, then the dory suddenly becomes the main piece, and if we go even bigger, like that, you can see this dory now is all about the dory, and it's slightly claustrophobic here, taking up a lot of room. So it's this balance between the two, and this one here, this middle one, this is the one I finally came up at, so here. So what I've got is a horizon here, and that's going to be right at the back. So this is, the sky here is the furthest back part of the carving. These rocks are right in the foreground. This is right in the foreground here, as near as we can get. Then all this is going to sweep back in depth to the back here, and right at the background there'll be some sort of trees and hills here, and the edge of the beach will come along here. So this will be sort of beach, rocks, sand, that sort of thing, and this is water. So we have this interesting issue of how do we carve water, how do we carve sand, how do we carve rocks, how do we carve trees, and then how do we get this fantastic sculptural shape in here. So let me show you a model that I made. This is a model out of clay, and if I lift it off, you can see how deep it is, and because it's a relief carving, you can only see this really correctly from one viewpoint. So I must be very careful about where I put that viewpoint and keep looking at it in order to get this movement. And what I'm interested in eventually with these beautiful lines coming along here and disappearing to quite low down in the wood. So this model is really helpful to me to make. You can see that essentially the back is flat. This is right on the back of the wood, and there's this big gap in here. So one of our problems is going to be keeping this from being too thin, because this is all going to have to be undercut to get the shadows. So I worked out my drawing, I made my model, and the next thing to do would be to stick the drawing on here. But let me tell you a bit about this wood. This is a lovely piece of English elm. It's about 30 years old. Very lucky to get hold of it. You can see it's got a fairly bland piece of figuring here at the bottom where the boat will be, and you can see at the top edge where the sky will be, it's a bit more figured, and that's really what you want to find in the wood, something that's got more interest in this top edge, because that's all the sky and the water. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to use this wood. Let me show you the other side. You see these little knots here, very small bits. On the other side of the wood, they become quite severe. Now, you've also got some splits in here like this. These splits have come since I brought the wood into the house, and you can see that they're, as always, splitting along the medullary rays. Now, my plan would be to end up with something like this. But if I start on this side and cut through, what I'll do is I'll end up with very close to this size knot. So really, if I start on this side, cut these away, then with luck, my background should begin to look a little bit more like this. So I want to start on this side. Similarly, I'm going to cut away these cracks here. And the other advantage of being on this side here of the wood is that these are medullary rays like this. So this wood will tend to warp so that it's curved this way against this grain. So this is a side I want to put against the wall because it will keep the corners down against the wall. So for these reasons, it's actually best for me to start on the ugly side, if you like, on the difficult side of the wood. But fingers crossed, because I don't really know, when I get to the back, we should see these disappearing and be much more of a textured, figured surface at the back end here. So having made those decisions, the next thing to do would be to stick on my drawing onto the wood like so. I'll use a photo mount glue like this, and I also have got a copy of the drawing to keep, because I'm certainly going to need that as I go along to measure things. Let me also say, before I do that, regarding these cracks, that I do have a piece of spare wood that was cut off the end of the plank, and I can use this to make some repairs if I need to. So, get our drawing glued on in place, and then we're ready to start carving. I'm just popping in again very briefly to emphasize something. It's really important that you do your preparation. This carving is quite tricky in that we're going to be using depth in a particular way. We're not doing this relief carving by layers. We've got this movement into the background. So the amount of preparation you do has got to be enough. You can't do too little. You need to do your research like I did on the type of boat, your drawings, a clay model, line it up, get the wood, do all that stuff and get it really clear in your mind what you're doing, and then you've got a great chance of success. So don't skimp on that. Make sure you're strong on your preparation, and that's true for all carvings, not just this one.